Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the legacy of the sixth Mughal emperor, Aurangzeb. And let me tell you, he is a historical figure defined by a fascinating, almost unbelievable duality. So let's just dive right into the deep end with a question that historians have literally debated for centuries. How could one man steer an empire to its absolute global peak while simultaneously fracturing its social fabric? To answer that, we'll be looking at an empire of contrasts. His military zenith, the world's largest economy, his controversial religious policies, the resulting rebellions and resistance, and finally, his incredibly complex legacy. Section 1. An empire of contrasts, the sixth Mughal emperor. You really have to wrap your head around the sheer human scale here. We're talking about Aurangzeb commanding a vast, incredibly diverse population of roughly 158 million subjects across the Indian subcontinent. And he did this for an astounding 49 years. I mean, to rule a population that massive, with its myriad of cultures, religions, and languages, it absolutely required a masterful, iron-willed administration. Moving to Section 2, military zenith and expansion, pushing the frontiers. 4 million square kilometers. That is just staggering. By 1689, Aurangzeb's relentless military drives had expanded the empire to cover nearly this entire area, spanning almost the whole Indian subcontinent. This was actually the greatest geographic extent the Mughal Empire would ever reach. So, how did he pull that off? Well, through superior cannon batteries and personal command, Aurangzeb overwhelmed these long-standing independent kingdoms. For instance, think about the 1687 siege of Golconda. Faced with what was thought to be a totally impregnable granite fortress, his forces literally erected complex scaffolding under the cover of night just to scale the massive walls. It's a true testament to his sheer strategic willpower. Section 3. The world's largest economy, an era of unmatched wealth. But hey, military might is only one part of the story. Under his rule, the Mughal Empire became the ultimate global economic engine. Surpassing Qing China, his empire single-handedly produced a whopping 25% of the world's GDP. And this wasn't just hoarding wealth. This signaled a period of proto-industrialization, making his empire the biggest manufacturing power on Earth. To really put that into perspective, his annual revenue reached an estimated $450 million. That was more than 10 times the wealth of his famous European contemporary, King Louis XIV of France. So what was driving all this cash flow? Early on, he actually remitted over 80 long-standing taxes to stimulate the economy. The French traveler François Barnier even marveled at the massive Mughal karkhanas. These were textile workshops employing hundreds of artisans churning out silk, fine brocade, and cashmere. By standardizing coins and using highly organized tax surveys, Aurangzeb basically turned textiles and agriculture into an unprecedented flow of international capital. Section 4. Controversial religious policies, the antithesis of pluralism. Now, this is where we really hit the ultimate duality of his reign. It's a bit of a paradox. On one hand, he dismantled the syncretic pluralism of his predecessors, reimposing the jizya tax on non-Muslims and ordering the destruction of several prominent Hindu temples. Yet, pragmatically, he employed a record 31.6% Hindu officials in his bureaucracy, mostly Marathas and Rajputs. That's more than any prior Mughal emperor. And he actually continued issuing land grants to protect various Hindu and Jain shrines. A huge cornerstone of his administration was the Fatwa-e-Alamgiri. Essentially, he pivoted away from secular decrees, firmly positioning himself as a strict defender of Sharia law. He sought to codify Islamic jurisprudence by gathering hundreds of jurists to create this completely massive legal code. And his conservative stance led to some really sweeping, strict edicts. He banned the Hindu practice of sati, prohibited the Zoroastrian festival of Nowruz, and demolished temples specifically in regions where rebellions flared up, like Mathura and Varanasi. He also ordered the executions of high-profile figures, including the Sufi mystic Sarmad and the 9th Sikh guru Tegh Bahadur. Now, modern historians vigorously debate whether these actions were driven purely by religious zealotry or if it was just cold realpolitik to crush political dissent. But regardless of the motive, the resulting social fractures across his empire were totally undeniable. Section 5. Rebellions and Resistance, an Empire Fracturing. As you might guess, those strict policies caused a lot of friction.
He almost immediately faced a rapid succession of uprisings across entirely different communities. The Hindu Jats rebelled in 1669, followed by the Satnami sect in 1672. The execution of Guru Tegh Bahadur militarized the Sikhs under Guru Gobind Singh, and the Rajputs of Marwar waged a 3-decade insurgency starting in 1679. This constant, relentless need for military intervention severely drained the imperial treasury.
But the absolute most punishing of all? That would be the Maratha resistance down in the Deccan. Led initially by Shivaji and later his successors, the Marathas utilized these really exhausting hit-and-run guerrilla tactics. Even though Aurangzeb managed to capture and execute the Maratha king Sambhaji, the warfare didn't stop, it just decentralized. It became this grueling chess game stretching over 2 decades, stripping the empire of its resources and consuming a fifth of the entire Mughal army.
Section 6. A Complex Legacy, the Emperor's Final Days. Okay, so despite controlling literally the largest economy on Earth, Aurangzeb lived an incredibly austere personal life. He memorized the Quran, hand-copied manuscripts, and even sewed caps for a livelihood. He died at age 88 at his military camp, leaving behind only 300 rupees for charity and requesting a simple, unmarked, open-air grave. He basically died amidst the sobering realization that his endless, hyper-expanded wars had effectively bankrupted his realm.
There's this really poignant final letter he wrote to his son, Azam Shah. He wrote, "I came a stranger into this world, and a stranger I depart. I have not been the guardian and protector of the empire." Wow. It reveals a titan grappling with deep regret, fully aware that the empire he expanded to its absolute zenith was already beginning a terminal decline.
And really, that right there is why his legacy remains completely polarized today. To some folks, he's this administrative genius and a pious ruler who expanded frontiers and eradicated corruption. But to others, he's a divisive zealot whose intolerance fractured a delicate, pluralistic society. It's wild to think he was simultaneously the architect of India's greatest geographic and economic extent and the main catalyst for its eventual unraveling.
So it leaves us with a huge question. Ultimately, how does history choose to remember its titans? For the dizzying heights of their power, or the deep fractures they leave behind? Can any single ruler hold together an empire so vast without an iron fist? Or do those very policies guarantee its eventual collapse? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the past, and I'll see you in the next one.